This whole animated template was done from start to finish using Gemini 3. We're talking about the beam animations, the buttons, the logos that are using a marquee animation. We have the hover animation, some of these decorations that are really adding a lot of details to the design, the beautiful typography, and all of this is fully responsive. It works on mobile and desktop. Now, you might have noticed I start with a banger with these templates. They're hugely popular on social media whenever I share it, and people are really excited to learn how I did it. So I'm going to show you the full blueprint. And to be honest, we're about to disrupt a whole industry, a very lucrative one, with how we're using AI to create these templates to a higher degree and much, much faster. The icing on the cake, we have the Unicorn Studio animation in the background, which everyone keeps asking about. That is one of the top questions that I constantly get. On top of also, what is the recorder, the screen recorder that I always use? Well, it's called Screen Studio. And then you're like, man, what is this disruption we're talking about? Well, we're talking about people selling template from 50 to 100 USD per template, and both on Webflow and Framer. And we're about to launch the same thing on Aura, on top of the fact that we have already a bunch of really cool free templates that people share through a lot of remixes that you can do on Aura. You can see every single day we're getting somewhere between 20 to 100 new templates, and we're about to allow people to essentially sell their templates on Aura as well. All right, so what are we going to talk today? Well, we're going to learn how to do this from scratch. What is the composition of the landing page? What are the animation prompts that we can use? How do we compose it? How do we reference icons that are more unique, logos, buttons? How do we ask for different animations per section? For example, like this little car here, which is fun. How do we make it more unique? And how do we use something like Unicorn Studio to really bring that hero to the front line? There's a lot of key interactions here that we're going to be discussing that I believe can really elevate a landing page. So for example, when you scroll, you can see that there's a completion to the text here. And then when you scroll, there's also a sticky element plus a step 1, 2, and 3, which can be highly engaging if you're doing storytelling, you're telling about your business. So in terms of composition, you might need a website like Superhero, where you have a lot of these examples of beautiful hero. Now, we've discussed about Dribble before, we've discussed about Mobbin, but there's so many more resources out there. A screenshot is worth everything with Gemini 3. Instead of prompting maybe 100 words or 1,000 words, you might want to take a screenshot instead. It has a lot of those things that AI will be able to capture almost instantly because it holds the fonts, the colors, the layout. Is it grid or flex? What colors? What font? It's pretty good at detecting fonts, icons. And then we get into the sections, right? Usually I spend about 50% of the time on the hero because, again, this is everything for me. It's the cover image for your Instagram, for your TikTok, for your Twitter, and everyone clicks on it when there's a laser or there's a beautiful composition of that cover. Then we have the features section. So something like this, what is it called, and how do you prompt it, and how do you collect these screenshots? So this is typically the second section, and you might want to look at a website like Bento grids, where you have a lot of these cards. This is what we call it, and there's so many ways to lay out these cards. This is what we call a Bento layout. Apple popularized that in their demo at the WWDC. and now it's becoming sort of common ground in the design space. Then you have websites like H1 Gallery, which gives you even better hooks and headlines for your landing page. And this is super important because it's part of the hero. Now you might be asking, what is this industry that you're talking about? Well, you know, in the old days, we used to do a lot of templates for WordPress, for example. And now we have quite a few big players. We have Squarespace, Wix, Webflow, Framer, Figma, which is all of those spaces where you can submit templates. You also have something like UI8, and I mean, so many websites. This is a big industry. And a designer who's able to excel at this can make somewhere between, you know, $5, $10, $20,000 out of one template over a long period of time, of course. And if you make multiple of these templates, you can essentially make, you know, a six-figure business. So we're talking about $100, $200, $300,000 a year just making templates and selling them, because it's a big market, right? A lot of people are buying templates because they don't want to spend all of this time, or they don't know how, you know, how to build these templates, and they know the business, right? They know the clients in their location, in their city, in their country. They know how to speak the language. And now, thanks to AI, we can essentially prompt all of this stuff into any language that we want, into any color. So you take a template, and without even have to click around and sort of having all of that expertise that you have to build over years, knowing where to click, how to deal with auto layout, how to deal with components and all that stuff. No, here we can just prompt everything, change the language, decide where to deploy it. So imagine, right? Here, of course, I'm using Aura, which is an app that I built myself 6 months ago. And, you know, I prompt everything. I edit everything. And if I don't want to edit, if I just want to prompt, that's totally fine. I just can focus on the preview. And I can just focus on the little details that I can just click: the font pairing, the colors, and the assets. So the assets including the beautiful Unicorn Studio background that I can just click, and boom, I have all of these ingredients to what AI can cook for me in the most efficient way possible. Do all of this within, depending of course on how much time you spend on the details, but somewhere between 30 minutes to a few hours to even a few days if you spend a ton of time customizing every single section, every single animation, and so on and so forth. But it is your choice as a creator to spend the time that you want to specialize in the animations or the hero section or the text, the copywriting, adapting to different languages for your local environment, and selling it to clients that you already know how to speak to. And by the way, as you know, AI is already disrupting the image generation business. And something like this, using Nano Pro, you can essentially put your website design on a 3D mockup or a photo, and you can just prompt something like, hey, I want to place this design into this, 3D render. I can even reference multiple images. I can prompt, and Nano Banana has been sharing a bunch of really great prompts that you can use. For example, how to create infographics or beautiful 3D renders with text that are perfectly rendered and at 4K resolution. Right here, I'm generating using Nano Banana using the Changi Airport in Singapore, which is where I live. And I'm also generating a beautiful render of a MacBook Pro with the insides. So the iPhone 17. So I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here. This is happening in real time in front of us. And Gemini 3 is really at the center of all of this. For example, creating these magnets for my city in a single prompt, and this prompt is freely shared. This information is free to everyone, and they can use it to create their businesses, their template, their images. And I think it's a designer's dream. This is something I've always wanted to happen. As a creator, you want your vision to come to life, right? And you want to do it in the most efficient way possible and at the highest level possible so that people can enjoy the quality that you've always dreamed of. I'm not inventing anything here. This is a project that I built 6 months ago, and now we have 65,000 users. We're getting more than 1,000 new users every single day. But most importantly, our whole team is building templates, right? We used to take so long to create these templates in Figma. In fact, I remember taking about 2 weeks per template because we have to build all of these components. We have to, spend so much time brainstorming and mood boarding and all that stuff. But now our team has been designing at the level that I have always dreamed of for my team to have. So you can see their latest templates is nothing short of breathtaking. So a lot of templates that we are making it for free for our pro users, which by the way, costs like $20 a month, but you have access to these, to these templates that are easily worth $50, per template. And then we have the speed factor, right? AI brings so much speed into the workflow of every single designer, creators. I've been doing this for a while, so you can see I've been doing somewhere between 5 to 10 templates a week. Not all of these templates are, crazy detail and all that stuff, but you can see some of them have been standout success, getting thousands of likes on Twitter just because the storytelling here is that we are able to do this using Gemini 3. So let's get started, right? We're going to start from scratch. And again, full disclaimer, this is a tool that I built. Of course, you can say that I'm promoting it, but I genuinely use it to create all of these templates. And I want to teach you, but you can use any tool that you want, whether it's V0, Lovable, Cursor, and so on. All right, let's start from the beginning, right? So we have these templates and the goal is to create as amazing as possible comparatively to these templates that are selling for $100 USD per template. And we want to have as many examples as possible, whether you're doing it for a client or you're doing it for yourself. Of course, for me, the dream is to be self-sustainable. I'm sure for a lot of people it's the same. Yes, you can do client work, but if you can build something like a template and you do it for your own taste, which by the way is the main differentiator in the new AI age, and you want to gather all the resources, all the best websites, the hero, the sections, and all that stuff. So we're going to start with superhero, and you would want to sort of like browse some of these amazing hero. As I mentioned before, I like to start with a hero. This is where I spend 50% of my time, and sometimes we need to do multiple ones before we're happy with one of them. So you want to collect a bunch of screenshots, such as this one, for example, or you can use your own design. You can use the designs from your team, the designs from your website, and sort of AI is going to adapt for you. But usually you want to save all of these inspiration and you want to use them as a wireframe, and you want to create as many as possible until you're really happy with the results. And by the way, you can use my designs as well. So the first step is to paste that screenshot right here. And then we're going to go to the prompt builder. And essentially, I'm going to create the hero section. I want to change the names, the numbers. And I also want to use a specific icon set. And I like to start with a hero like this as soon as possible. And so, you might want to look at an amazing library called Iconify. This is open source, and these are all icons that you can use, and it's part of the JavaScript, one line of code, and you're going to be able to use all of this, which is amazing because that's what you want. You want AI to sort of generate all of these things with as little code as possible, that you have like a breadth of variety and styles that you want. Some of the really popular ones are Solar, Hero Icon. The one that everyone uses right now, which is kind of becoming boring, is Lucid. Unfortunately, the more that something is popular, the more that it becomes a baseline. It becomes like what we call AI slob. Like purple gradient has become AI slob just because AI uses it all the time. So one of my favorite ones is called Solar, and the reason why I like it is because it has multiple styles. It has the outline style, the broken style, the duotone style. And so that's why I'm going to use create a hero section, change text names and numbers, use Iconify Solar, and use the SVG logo monotone, which, by the way, has a lot of these logos that to me is super useful because I used to spend so much time gathering all of these Apple logos, Google logos. But now you can use something like just mentioning the name, by the way. You can say something like, oh, I want to use Iconify simple icons. And then you can even mention maybe the logos that you want. I haven't tried that much, but definitely just let AI do the work. And then on Aura, you're going to be able to change and switch them quite easily because it's already part of our built-in, click and change. So as you can see here, you don't need to spend so many hours gathering all of these SVGs. It's all part of the API, and you can just include that in your prompt. Isn't that crazy? And then we have the fonts, right? You can mention the fonts, and in which case you can mention any of the font from Google because they're free and they are easily referenced by AI using JavaScript. And the ones that you want to focus on is definitely the sans. So for example, we have all here, and these are usually the most popular ones. We already have a bunch that you can just click and font pair directly in Aura, but you can definitely mention this. At least know some of the names, such as Inter, which is right now by far the most used fonts in the world. And, but there's definitely a really big need now to be a little bit different, to change something. So the one that I'm using, by the way, is called Newsreader. And I just thought that this was such a beautiful font. And it also has a beautiful italic style. It is a serif font, but what I noticed is that it does work really well with sans serif font as well. And by the way, if you want to learn all of these things, you should definitely go to Instagram and follow a bunch of people who are really into typography, colors, hero section, and all that stuff. You will really upgrade your arsenal of tools and resources. But also a little tips and tricks on the social platform. If you want to get a lot of followers and a lot of engagement, which is the most important thing, is you have to be active on these platforms. You have to use it. You have to be part of that niche. You have to follow people in your niche, and you have to like, comment, and so on. You have to create stories. You have to generate beautiful slides, which, by the way, we can use AI Studio or Aura to generate these slides for you, or Nano Banana. So some more prompts that I'm using. We have add vertical container size lines. Those are the little grids and the lines. I also like to use the 1, 0, and 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3 steps. They add these nice little details. Again, we're trying to not be generic, right? If you don't want to be generic, you have to add some of these details to your design. And so, yeah, we're going to start with this, and we're going to see how it goes. So at the same time, you want to start as many of these screenshots, so image to HTML as possible. You want to, again, redo the same steps, change names, create a hero section, or adapt new sections, use the icons that you want, the font that you want, and so on and so forth. try to add these details because again, we're using some of these example as more like a wireframe, and we don't want to use the same brand names. We don't want to use the same things. So we want to remix it because remixing is kind of like the new era in which we are essentially remixing everything. We're all using Nano Banana, which essentially is a remix of many things that have been created in the past. So you can see, using my screenshot here from my template, I was able to create somewhat similar, but also somewhat different. And now it is up to me to change this, to mold it in my image, to change the color. So for example, I can say something like change to orange, like I love this font, by the way. And I don't know, I'm just so curious. So I'm gonna go into the code. I know how to read code, of course. Maybe you don't, but in this case, I can see that it's actually using Playfair display. But again, you don't need to know code. I was curious. I wanted to know what was the font. But anyways, change to orange, change, let's say, you can even say change to light mode. And I also love the fact that it created like a completely different button from the original one. And I really like the style. I love that it added these numbers here, which is again different from my original template. It has kind of like a sonar style here, a different animation. And here I'm just vibing, right? Maybe I want to change the logos to simple icons using Iconify. So again, knowing the font that you want or the logo that you want is super important. And then I'm also going to add some noodles. So let's see what AI is going to give. So add noodles to connect with the circle. And then I'm going to put something like beam animate the noodles. And I'm also going to mention the size of the logo. So the logo is going to be 96 by, let's say, 36. And again, these are knowledge that should be available to a lot of people who have done design for a long time. The only difference is that they're using a different tool. They're using a different UI. In this case, we're describing it, right? So it's like having a senior designer designing for you or co-piloting for you, and you use your taste and your knowledge and your experience and all the things that you've been using for so many years. Instead of clicking around, you're just describing it. Okay, I don't like this, I like this, I want to add this. And then you're changing everything. You're cooking it. And, yeah, it's starting to look really good. And I managed to change this to light mode. I could have kept dark mode, of course, but, you're vibing and you're doing something until you're really happy with it. And then you can focus on the rest. But you can see, just with this, I created a pretty awesome hero, right? So it's not perfect, the logo here, but it added the noodles, it added the beam animations, it added it did some circle thing here. It kept my font that I already like. So again, we're using many designs, we're generating as many as possible until we find something that really clicks. And so this is not bad. I think, the question is, how do you start from an idea and concept and make it better? And also, how do you make it different as well? Because we're using this as a template, but we can totally say something, okay, use serif font, use beige and orange. I can say something like, okay, instead of matcha, make it about oranges, and put a phone in the middle instead. And there you go, right? We're just, iterating, we're trying to make it better. And this one, I want to change it back to blue, to let's say green in dark mode, and fix the logos to use and not images. And boom, just, we keep molding it. We want to make it different. And I think it looks pretty good. It could definitely be a little bit better, but I do like the creativity that it's brought. So for example, the bottom here is pretty nice. We have an iPhone in the middle. Of course, we can say something like, okay, please fix this, or use a dynamic island instead. We can say animate this portion here, and we can even customize. So for example, we really don't like the font. We can just go here and we can just customize from here with just a few clicks. I can just go from something like Son, which I've explained earlier, to something like Mono, to something like Grotesque, or something like Serif. So we want to be as efficient as possible, and we want to get to a result based on our taste that we like. And there you go. So I like this a little bit better, and I think it fits really well into the sort of orangey and zesty website. So this could be a good product for like an orange product, maybe organic or something like that. So let's go back here and boom, look at this. This is so good. And it has a different color. It's in dark mode, which I like very much, especially for this type of SaaS website. Dark mode works really well. Again, depends on your industry. And then, for example, we have the icons that right now is using a SVG. And again, we have these icons that are available. So for example, Simple Icons has all of these logos, and I can just vibe design it, like, okay, so this is the kind of details that maybe AI is not super good at, like picking the perfect logo for you or the perfect image for you. So I'm just Command D and duplicate it, and I'm deleting the ones that I don't like. And then once I have the perfect format, then I can just change it to another one, then another one, and another one, just really quickly here. And I could definitely spend a lot more time, but this is pretty good. So as you can see, with just a few prompts, I'm able to really change and mold a design into something completely different. So before it was kind of like this. Obviously, this is taken from sort of like a wireframe, a reference, usually a screenshot. But here you want to change it as much as possible. You want to change the text, you want to change the colors, and the logos, the icons. You want to add animation. So as I did add a circle animation, the slide in, blur in, fade in animation, and finally I'm changing the color to be more orange. Bring the text to the front that is white. So now it looks like this. And I think that looks pretty awesome. It's a good start, and I would love to spend more time on it, but I think that's pretty good. And so you can see why I don't want to sort of like start with the full landing page. Of course, I could have, but when you're starting with a hero, which is the most important part, you can be far more creative and you can focus more on the details and the generation. Every time that you're prompting, it's going to take 30 seconds, maybe 1 minute instead of like 3 minutes. So that's really important. And let's look at here, and you can see I asked for a green button. I'm using a reference to the components. We have also a secondary button that on hover, it has the beam animation. And again, this is part of the prompting, you can say add a 1 pixel beam animation that continuously goes around the button shape, and the button is a pill shape. Here we're using a noodle beam animation to the circle in the middle. Looks pretty good, Unicorn Studio. And now if we're happy with the hero and we're happy with the colors, we're ready to move on to the rest of the sections. And so we want to look at the few key resources. So for example, you want to look at Mobbin, for example, which is really cool. And you want to go to sites, and then you want to go to the top, like the first 3 websites. These are free. Now, of course, you can get Pro and you can have access to hundreds of thousands of examples, which is amazing. It has animations and all that stuff. And you can click on one of them and go to the sections. And this is where you're going to find the sections of those pages, which is insanely useful. So what is cool here is that you have real example, real website, and the variety of styles is quite impressive. So for example, I quite like this one by Dropbox, and this also one can work really well with the orange website, depending on the style that you're looking for. Also one with a specific background, so not necessarily white, because you want to alternate the colors, right? You want to alternate the content. So if you go to a website like this one, you don't want the whole thing to be orange. Sometimes you want a background that is white, just like to give energy and to have alternative backgrounds. And here the same way. And then you have Bento Grid, in which you can really set up a layout that is different. This is really powerful for the feature section. So you know, you want to mix and match the style. AI is really, really smart. It's not going to get to the level of details that you see here. So for example, some of these are videos with animations and stuff like that. So that might not be as possible, but something like this would be feasible by the AI. So again, you want to take a screenshot and then bring that. And likewise for Dribble, you can search for like features and you can find these sections. What is really important though, it's not just about cards, which is why, you know, Bento Grid might not always get the best result, because then it's only going to show the cards. What you want is something like with a, you know, CTA.gallery is focused on more call to action, so a button with a section. This can be good if you want to, you know, call for attention, someone to click and take action. But otherwise you have Dribble, which again, you have these examples based on your search. You're going to search for features. And once you have some of those sections, you're going to bring that here, and you can essentially look at the structure of your layout. And this is where I think it's good to know the structure of a website. So for example, if you should learn a little bit about HTML structure. Sometimes the AI, because we're creating a hero, it kind of treats this one as a footer. It should not. What you should do here is basically say the logos sections should not be a footer. Change that to a section. And then you can say something like, by going to the prompt builder, we have a bunch of these. By the way, I put all of these as a reference. This is kind of like my arsenal of prompts that I put on a regular basis. So for example, this one, create iPhone frames. This one, create a marquee animation. So for example, I can use a marquee animation on the logos, and I can also use a animate fade in, blur in, which is what we did. And I'm gonna go to the top here, which is adapt a new section. And of course, I can reference the icons every time if I want to, because like AI, sometimes it's not always going to keep exactly what what you did in the past. So it's good to remind AI. And once we have this, then we can also reference specifically for each of them. So for example, the marquee animation is for the logos. I'm gonna paste that image and then press enter. Now, keep in mind that if you want to save time, you can also do something like adapt new sections. and then you reference the components, and this is where you can search for section, and then press shift, and I'm gonna select a bunch. Of course, I could be more specific, but for the sake of time, I'm just gonna select a bunch. So we have this, and then we can add a footer and then reference a footer by searching footer. So this is done separately, and this is going to try to adapt. This is a long one, and usually when you have the hero that is done and you like the style, you like the direction, AI is really, really good at adapting new references, like whether it's an image or a code component, or yeah, in this case, we're talking about references. All right, so this is what we have so far. We have the hero, and then we have the new section. I do have to mention a few things. I think it's looking awesome, but sometimes you might, especially when you're introducing like breaking changes to the prompt. So it's fine if you want to change the text, the colors, or a specific button, and you reference it very precisely. But oftentimes, AI will change more than you ask for. And in those cases, you might want to specify something like a negative prompt. So for example, you can say that don't change anything else, like keep the hero or keep the nav bar the way it was. And so this is going to tell AI to not touch some of these sections. It's very important, especially when you're dealing with a lot of details. And another thing is, oftentimes, even though you're asking to change the text and the names, especially if you're doing a lot of tasks and prompts at the same time, it might just overlook some of those. So in those occasions, what you want to do is to go to the edits mode. It's not as powerful as the default mode where it regenerates everything, it cleans your code and all that stuff. The edits mode is great for small tasks. So for example, change all the text to fit the hero concept. So by doing this, you're keeping pretty much all the same structure. This is also great for adding new sections. And also when you see that maybe AI is changing a little bit more than you ask for. So you can see this is great. It changed the text. I can definitely change the color as well. So change color from red to green in the features section. All right, this is looking pretty awesome. Change the text, change the green, and I can definitely put a lot more time into it. But I just wanted to show you an overview of what's happening and what kind of strategies you should be looking at. And if, as you get better with this, you might want to do directly in design mode. So you go to design mode here and you click on a section, and there's a small button here that says plus. And this is where you add a new section. And from here, you can just put a screenshot. So I'm going to take one of the screenshots I took from the awesome Dropbox website. So I'm going to go to the prompt and adapt a new section. And what is cool about this is that it's only going to change that portion of the code. It's going to insert the cool. As you can see, it went from an image that is completely different from what we see as a result here. And it adapts the whole thing. Green, this is my favorite technique because it does really yield amazing result. You just need to know a little bit about, the sections of a page, whether it's a hero or a div or a footer. But if you do that correctly, then you can change it. And the same way with, editing a specific element, whether it's a button or the nav bar. So you select this section, for example, and then you go to prompt, and I can say something like change the text. You can also use different models that are faster if you don't require the same level of, design and UI. So Gemini 3 is a little bit slower, much slower than GPT 5.1. But it's much, much better at UI. But for small tasks, you can use GPT 5.1. It's just so much faster. So now looking at our Zest project, we added these components that we reference. So you can see here, these are all the components that I reference. And we are building that super large library of components, sections, button, and all that stuff. So again, you can reference those and you can change the buttons, the nav bar individually because AI is not going to do that. And it's really, really difficult to prompt that kind of level of detail. But you can see when I scroll, it's looking really good. And it has the animation from the sections that I reference. It has the footer, you know. The rest is for you to sort of like ask AI to change what you need to change. And the other thing is, all the things that AI is not very good at, I try to make it available in Aura. So for example, AI is not very good at images, right? So it often generates these broken images. So what you want to do is basically you go to assets, and this is where you're going to go here and you're going to search the Aura library for orange, for example. And, you know, maybe it should be in food. So we don't have like a ton of images about oranges, but we definitely have a ton of food, which is a pretty good second thing. Obviously, you can go to Midjourney and generate all of these images and upload them. But one by one, I'm just going to fix them really quickly so that they fit sort of the concept that I'm looking for, right? You know, I'm vibing with, you know, the kind of stuff. So maybe I should focus on fruits and, you know, fix all the broken images. And then I'm going to go to portraits and I'm going to search for portraits. This we definitely have a lot, and some of them are more futuristic. If you don't want a futuristic one, you might want to go to something like headshot, which is more business and more like neutral. And make sure to fix at least the broken images. So that's the minimum you should do. But you know, this is a good start, and you know, the rest is just to fix the details and to fix the responsiveness. So for example, you might want to look for what it looks like on the iPad. I think it looks pretty good. We have this infinity canvas, which is really cool. I can add, you know, different resolutions. So for example, here I'm going to add for the phone, how it looks like. And so, yeah, there you go. The main thing you're always looking for is the horizontal scrolling. This is kind of like, I used to spend so many hours before to adapt my designs to different viewports, different browsers, especially 20 years ago. But oh my God, having AI do all of this work for you and you just focusing on the creative aspect of the UI is you know, is so incredible. So this is great, and you want to create a beautiful cover. And so, you know, we have a bunch of templates. So what you want to do is go to desktop and go to the canvas. And here you can either arrange them manually, right? You will have this kind of like presentation. This is super important if you're creating beautiful slides for Instagram or creating a cover or creating different showcases and different section that you want to showcase on Instagram or Twitter, LinkedIn, pick your poison. We have a bunch of these preset templates that are really, really fun. So for example, this one is, make sure to scroll though, right? So you scroll here and then you show different parts of the UI and then you take a screenshot using your Mac. So Command-Shift-4, and you know, you have the left side, you have the right side, you have like the triple one. You know, I try to make it super easy for designers to just present their work. So we have the other side, we have also the quadruple one, which is really fun. So look at that. I mean, you know, so little effort and then you get maximum results. And so this is super fun. And going back here, we can do the same for this awesome project here. I'm just gonna go and set up my layout. I love this layout right here because it shows the entire website and it shows the stuff that people want to see. So for example, they don't want to just see here. Make sure to go to preview because the preview is going to show the animation as well. And as you can see, we have a really nice cover. I use this all the time in my tweets, and they they generate a lot of it's very polished. It looks polished, but it's all sort of organized, and it makes I try to make it super easy. You want to remove the ring, you want to change maybe the corner radius here, whether you want it square or not, and then you can either go to light or dark mode, and then you can change the background color, whether you want like a specific color like green, for example, or you want something as an image. So for example, I'm going to scroll down a little bit. I use this all the time, for example, and you can search for a specific color, and maybe you want abstract green, and maybe this one is going to work really well. So this is really quite nice. It fits really nicely to the background. And another thing I can do is to change the blur effect, and now we have something really nice. I just want to make a little change to the background, maybe light or dark, up to you, because when you blur, it also shows the background behind. So now we have a really nice cover that I can just screenshot using my Mac, and at any aspect ratio that I want, and I can post that on social media. And another really cool screenshot right here. And so, yeah, this is my secret sauce. This is my blueprint for how I create these amazing landing pages with crazy detailed animations. And it's just gonna get better, right? Gemini 3 is just gonna keep getting better, referencing the buttons, prompting these animations, such as the marquee animation, the beam animation, the circle animation, the decorations, the 01, 02, 03 details, the grid using container size vertical lines, and customizing in design mode if you have a little bit more design experience, and just progressively get better at those things. And you want to prompt one by one, you want to get into the details, you want to add more sections, and make sure that you have a full arsenal of tools and resources at your fingertip. So for example, you can go and use Nano to generate new images. You can use Superhero to get these beautiful hero section that to use as a wireframe, as an inspiration that you can mold, changing the colors, the text, the layout, and all that stuff, fixing issues that AI is going to give you when it does the translation for you. Bento grid has a lot of awesome cards that you can use for inspiration, and it's part of mood boarding. CTA.gallery. You can go to Mobbin for sites, and you can go and look at the sections. You can, of course, go to Aura and find all of these amazing templates that you can just remix and change to mold it for your business and for your perfect landing page. You have these components such as the background, such as the buttons and the cards that you might want to reference for your landing page. And of course, referencing the icon set, which would look like every other page. And you absolutely want to avoid that. In the new era, in the new age, the baseline is going to be very high. As AI gets better, you need landing pages that don't look generic and have that sort of like special sauce, that special flair that comes with years and years of experience with fine-tuning your taste as someone who uses products all the time. And in your specific niche, that would be ideal. Because if you're really specialized in your specific niche, then you can really command authority. And whenever you post on Instagram and social media, you interact with all of these experts, then you can get a lot more engagement and ultimately create the perfect products, the perfect landing pages that you can sell, and ultimately have the financial freedom that you're looking for. And I think that's, if that's what you wish, you should absolutely do that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. There's so much to teach. So please, consider subscribing to this channel. I'm going to share so many more techniques that I'm learning along the way as I'm building my product, as I'm building hundreds of these landing pages. I'm going to be sharing all of those blueprints There's nothing that makes me happier than seeing people becoming successful as a result of learning about these techniques. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.